All right, we're going to open our meeting with Dr. Johnson. He's going to give us an update on the COVID situation. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Thanks. Hey, I'll just do kind of like I did the other day, but let me just kind of give you a statistic. A lot of you all have followed this and know it, but in the state so far, there have been 10,300 and some odd cases as of yesterday, and 195 deaths. In Bradley County, we have 41 cases now. I think when I was here last week, 35, there have been just of the patients tested here, 15 have been positive from the hospital. And that's the same number it was a week ago. So that's not changed a bit. I think as you watch those statistics, do keep in mind that the number of positives, the number of cases that get reported in the state is going to go up because of increased testing. And that's a good thing. That's because there are a lot of folk everybody has figured out that have had or have the virus, but don't have any symptoms and have had no symptoms. So as testing increases, the number of cases will increase as well. I'll tell you a little bit about testing. Testing's become much more liberal right now. Right now, if you want to be tested, you can. It's free through the state. Right now, the turnaround time for resulting is about 48 hours, sometimes 72, sometimes 24. So it's gotten shorter. You can go to the health department 9 to 12. This Saturday at Cleveland Middle School, I think it's 9 to 12, but you might check. There's going to be a drive-through free testing event. The reason that it might be a good, even if you all were asymptomatic, having no trouble, the reason it's somewhat helpful for random testing, and the reason it's not a bad idea to do that, is that if you were to find out you were an asymptomatic carrier and self-isolated, that decreases the spread of the virus. That's the reason broad testing is helpful. So it is a worthwhile thing to do. Just quick about the hospital. The hospital is opening elective surgery like normal in the next few days. That's going to be somewhat limited. It's going to have all sorts of extra precautions. Everybody that has an elective operation will have a COVID test right before it's done. Honestly, with the everything that's happening at the hospital right now, the hospital is probably about the safest place you could be as far as preventing COVID, because everybody's masked. There's broad-based testing. I will simply say this is just personal opinion, not some universal fact. But as this discussion from Kevin and others about opening the economy happens, do keep in mind that this virus is going to be around for a while. We're all going to have to continue to be careful. Public masking is a good idea in that you prevent your bugs from getting out. Not that the mask prevents you from catching anything, but masking in public is a good idea. Social distancing is a good idea. The decisions about group gatherings are going to have some controversy about it, but I think still smaller groups are better. If you want more information, honestly, the best source, since there's a lot of marginal information around, if you go to tn.gov, coronavirus, there's a good website. There's a lot of information if you're interested. So that's kind of where we are right now. Any questions?
Can you repeat that website, Dr. Johnson? You broke up there just a little bit.
It is tn.gov. And then under that, there's one that has something word about coronavirus in the line. And that's got all the state and county-wide statistics, ages, a good bit of information. And it's got as much information as you might want. So it's a good source of information, since there is a lot of information going around that I think is a little marginal.
Dr. Bill,
Yes.
Pat Ford here. Okay, do we need to go through and get the test? Do you need a doctor's statement as before?
You do not now. Right
Okay.
now, at the health department's testing site, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you can get tested for free. There is a phone number on the website that you can call ahead and make an appointment. I don't think you have to. And then there is this rotating drive-through testing that the state is setting up, again, free all over. It happens that this Saturday at Cleveland Middle School, there is testing. You don't need a note from the doc. You don't need anything. You have to have some sort of identification because they want to be able to track you with results. So I think the only thing you have to do is show up with some sort of identification.
And what was those hours? Did you say the hours?
I believe it's 9 to 12 Saturday, and it's 9 to 12 at the health department. You might check that. Again, it
Okay,
was
sure.
on that tn.gov website.
I'll do it. Thank you, Bill.
Any update on the antibody test coming in our area?
Yes, there is the normal system for the regulatory agencies approving a test has been short-circuited by the government, and that's a good thing. But it also means that there's a lot of question about how accurate the antibody tests are. There are 5 that have received this emergency approval, but nobody knows for sure exactly how good they are yet. Those antibody tests only would tell you if you have had the virus. They wouldn't tell you for sure about your immune status, and they don't help telling you about whether you presently have the virus. So I don't think, honestly, there's a whole lot of value for us to get an antibody test yet. Sometime in the fairly near future, when you know it's accurate and you know what level of immunity that gives you, it may be helpful just so that you know how safe it is for you. But it's not quite there yet. So I wouldn't recommend doing that yet.
Well, if you knew you had positive antibodies, couldn't you give your plasma?
I don't know. Right now, the only ones that I think Blood Assurance and the Red Cross are accepting are people that have had nasal swab documented disease. I don't know that for a fact. I don't think that people would accept a positive antibody test yet, simply because there's not assurance about the accuracy of the test yet. Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for that update. We sure appreciate it. So now we want to welcome Mayor Brooks. He is going to engage us. So welcome, Mayor Brooks.
Hey, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. I've got my Cleveland, Tennessee morning cup of coffee. I'm thrilled to join the Sunrise Rotary Club, my fellow Rotarians across the city. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for that update. And I'm thankful that as of my last report, we have no active cases of COVID at Tenova, and I hope that that continues to hold true. I'm always thrilled when I'm asked how things are going and can you stop by and give us an update. My, what an exciting time to be mayor of the city with spirit. I'm thankful for my friends who consistently send me thoughts of encouragement and positive messages and virtual hugs. I'm very, very grateful. I've been asked lately about the season that we are in addition to natural disasters and tornadoes. We also have the pandemic. And just like all of you, April is tax season. People ask, Mayor, what are you reading while you're in quarantine? It's our 368-page Cleveland City budget. So just like everybody else, the city of Cleveland has a budget to present, and approve, and you all will be hearing and reading about that as we go forward. So, give a quick update. We were, as Dr. Johnson indicated, working diligently to mitigate as much as possible the spread of the virus with lots of public service announcements about wearing your masks. And millions of these are being made right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And you'll be seeing more about that in the newspapers in the next few days. The mobile testing, as Dr. Johnson indicated, has been a great help. It is no longer, you must be symptomatic, you must present symptoms. Anyone can be tested at any time. And I think that that is going to increase our numbers, but more importantly, I think it will increase our confidence as we go forward. As we were working through this coronavirus, the interesting thing about being mayor is most of us already have a normal iPhone, and then they give you the mayor's phone that is connected to the 911 system. And we started noticing Easter evening some increased activity on the 911 system about the approaching storms. And it's my first time as mayor. In 2011, 9 years ago, this same month, we had tragically we had loss of life in 2011. I was very concerned as the storms approached and we began to open storm shelters. There was, as Dr. Johnson can tell you, there was lots of discussion about opening a storm shelter where you would absolutely have more than 10 people gathered. And so what decision do you make between the health of your citizens and the well-being of your citizens, or the safety of making sure that people have a safe place to go? I'm incredibly grateful that we made the decision. The decision was made by the EMA department to open the storm shelter, because we ended up with about 75 people in Walker Valley Storm Shelter. We ended up with 115 at the hotel because their homes were destroyed beyond the ability to stay in their home. Again, the Easter miracle is that we had no loss of life. I joined Cheryl Dunson and many other Rotarians there that next week of the recovery and the distribution, and it was heartwarming to see so many of you all, my fellow Rotarians, serving above self out there. And whether it was a county or city or it didn't matter. These are neighbors, and these are our brothers and our sisters, and these are our pets, and these are our displaced families and displaced relatives. And it was just a heartwarming time to see our city come together, and that is still going on. And no more than we had what we believe is seen a plateau in our active cases of COVID, and then began to recover from the active storm that came through. It was no more than just a day or two. Then they said, "Hey, Mayor, we really have to have a serious conversation about the city budget." Because as you can imagine, when we are here in the safety and security of our homes, quarantining, and we're not at work, and we're not buying Hardee's steak burgers and Lassiter's coffee, and filling up as regularly at Texaco Tom's, all of those 0.5% of every penny of sales tax, that's how we pay for our schools, and that's how we pay for our sidewalks, and that's how we pay for our future going forward. And as you can imagine, there has been a tremendous decline. The state of Tennessee is reporting there is a 5 billion, and that's with a B, a $5 billion loss in the gross domestic product across the state of Tennessee. That is what we produce here and what we send out. There's a $5 billion drop. There is a $400 million deficit in revenues coming into the state just in the month of March, 1 month. So I was very thankful that I am, this is not, Rotary can't be political, so this is not a political statement. I am conservative by nature. I'm a little guy. Pete, if I was big and tall like you, Santa Claus, I think I would be less conservative. But I'm a little guy, so I'm a conservative thinker. I'm a conservative actor, and we have a very conservative budget. And we put into place last year, you all know my faith in God, and none of this takes God by surprise. A year ago, we put into place a refinancing of our debt. Now, refinancing debt is not sexy. It's something that the city of Cleveland had not done in more than 2 decades. And my first question was, why haven't we done this? The rates and the percentages have never been lower. And so we took 1/3 of our debt and refinanced it and saved about $6.5 million of your money. That's your tax dollars. And then we continued our very conservative budgeting and took another $2 million out of our spending for this annual budget. So that's about an $8.5 million conservative approach before we ever started the book that I just showed you, which really put us on a trajectory of being able to say, we will not have a tax increase. I know that's a big concern to a lot of people. Joyce has given me a thumbs up. Thanks, Joyce. I feel like I'm watching the Brady Bunch, by the way. I have all of you on my screen in gallery, and I want to point down to like Alice, and I want to do this. But no taxes increased at all. Even more importantly, we are a family at the city of Cleveland. And I was very concerned, like some of our other cities around us, with layoffs and furloughs to make sure no one would lose their job. That it was important to me in my first full year. This is my second budget, but it's the first one where I did not inherit this budget. I presented this budget. And I'm thankful that no taxes, no layoffs, no furloughs, and praying that that holds true through the rest of this fiscal year and fiscal cycle. To be honest with you, a lot of it has to do with all of you and the fact that you're incredibly understanding when it takes a little bit longer to fix the bridge at Michigan Avenue. How many people are ready for that 20th Street bridge to be fixed like I am? I am as well. A lot of you have been very patient on the Georgetown and 25th Street construction project. I'll date myself by saying the road project in front of the old Chalet Hotel. That's what I still call the Chalet. And it's taken a little bit longer because if you rush people and try to put a size 10 foot in a size 8 shoe, it costs you more money. So we have been conservative and we have taken our time to not raise the price of these projects once they have been contracted. So tornadoes, terrible COVID-19, and now a budget cycle, all within the last 30 days. So it has been a very interesting, but as mayor, I can tell you, the city with spirit is not just a motto. It's not just a slogan. There has never been a more appropriate way to describe our community. I have other mayors from other cities nearby reaching out, and they all say the same thing. How blessed you are, Kevin, to be mayor of such a great community. We saw yesterday on national television, MSNBC, a great organization downtown, Free to Fly. And they chose Cleveland, Tennessee, and Ocoee Street and Free to Fly with Haley Johnson as their opening up of the state of Tennessee profile. And to see not just local news and national news, but MSNBC is global news. And to see them talking about how this wonderful organization in Cleveland is keeping their customers safe, is protecting these women who are coming out of difficult transitional periods in their life and producing these masks. Someone asked on the questions a minute ago, how do we get a mask made in Cleveland? Free to Fly is making those. I know Joyce is making those. It's just a wonderful opportunity for us to show our city with spirit. That's a little bit of an update. I know it's very early, and this is only my first cup of coffee. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Madam President. I don't know how you want to do that, if you want to do it with people typing and texting, or if you want to, when they raise their hands, you can unmute them and they can ask any question. I thank you for your prayers. I feel them. Kim and I both feel them, and we're very grateful. Thanks for letting me be here with you. I see Cheryl Dunson's hand.
Yeah, I have a question. Mayor, do you know when the Norman Chapel Road construction will be finished?
Before Jesus comes back is my prayer. That's another interesting part of town. So this is a longer answer than you want. If you look at those private residences along both sides of Norman Chapel, that is the most expensive way to do a road project, because you have to purchase every parcel. I have some purchases and some deeds that I have to sign as mayor that literally state I just bought 18 feet of frontage, and you have to buy it 18 feet at a time. So just imagine if it's Joyce's driveway and Jerry Shannon's driveway and Wendy Williams' driveway and then Cheryl Dunson's driveway. Each one of those is a different transaction. They have this thing called eminent domain where you can just take it, but that's never been a real popular way of building a road. So we're trying to do it as quickly as possible. I do think that the construction will be done this late summer, early fall is the last projection I saw. But then you have to remember, right at the end of Norman Chapel, the huge construction with Cleveland State. So hopefully we will have all of that done. Norman Chapel this year, Cleveland State next year. Joyce, I see Joyce's hand down there, the Brady Bunch.
I'm at the top, sorry. Rolling Hills Drive project in the same Jesus category?
Rolling Hills.
I'm Rolling Hills and Candies. I'm sorry, Candies.
Right, at Candies. You should see Wright Brothers construction trucks there this week, which is a praise the Lord because they work very quickly. I can say this, there were 2 problems on Candies that no one knew about. Apparently, if you come down Candies Lane, I'll just say it, next to the roller skating rink, it's a very sharp decline. When you get to the bottom of that hill where the creek comes and the bridge is, we did not know that that was solid bedrock. One of the reports I got, because Joyce, I asked the same thing, why is it taking so long? Chattanooga Gas reported to us that they broke 7 diamond tipped bits trying to get through the rock. Now, Kevin, the mayor said, upon this rock, we will build our church. I was thankful that there's wonderful foundation down there and that bridge is going nowhere. But it did take longer. There was a delay. And President Mary, I'm gonna let you help me if there's other hands that I can't see.
Paul Morrow asked.
Can I go ahead and ask a couple of questions?
Yes, yes.
Okay, two of them. Do you know how much money we'll get from the federal disaster proclamation? And also, what's going on Blythe Ferry Road with the storm drains or sewers? They've been here for weeks.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for the questions. That is actually a project that is more related to Cleveland Utilities. You may have seen those trucks. They started this project over on the 20th Street near Lee University in that side of town. And that is the comprehensive study of every piece of Cleveland Utilities infrastructure under our city, top to bottom. It is basically an inspection of every pipe under every road. At some point, Jim, you have to establish a baseline, and that's what we're doing. Do you remember a couple of years ago, Cleveland Utilities in some downtown renovation discovered an underground tunnel? And it made the front page because they discovered a 100-year-old tunnel underground, Civil War, that they had never, that it's not on any map. More of that was discovered, and it became obvious we need to do some more studies. I'll go back to the Chalet Hotel Georgetown, same thing. There were water pipes and there were gas lines running in front of the chalet that were not on any map. And so the determination was made to make the expenditure to make that study. And Jim, remind me of the second part of that question. Blythe Ferry was one, what's the other?
When they had a federal declaration as a national disaster area, you know,
Yes.
what's going on, what kind of funds we'll get from that or anything?
I know that immediately the state notified us that there's just over $1 million. I think it's 1.374 that has already been sent our way from our state appropriation of emergency funds. The county got the same thing, so it's just over $2.5 million for both city and county immediately, immediate emergency funds. I don't think our federal delegation has reported to us, Jim, what our full appropriation is going to be, but I can tell you that we have heard personally from every member of the federal delegation that basically says, tell us what you need. The bid went out last week and was voted on this week for the removal of all the trees. And so far, not one thing has not been paid for as it relates to the emergency declaration. I'll try to get a number for you, Jim.
Alan, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Okay. I read in the paper, aren't you a member of this 30-man panel for the governor?
Yeah, good morning, Father Murphy.
Yeah, Bishop. Aren't you? And what were the considerations that went into like a phased opening of Tennessee? Because I thought you were integral in that process.
Sure. I'm very grateful. There's plenty of committees to go around, as you know, and I am on the state and local government subcommittee. It's about 15 of us city and county managers from across the state. I am the only one in this area, and the other Clevelanders are Debbie Melton, Mary Beth Hudson from Vacher, and we're all serving together on these various subcommittees. And yes, we did have input. We did have input on the phases. We continue to have input the recent announcement about barbers and hairstylists moving their opening dates from the 29th earlier to May the 6th. We had some input in that because, believe it or not, it's the most vocal part of our community where all the hairdressers that, and I was as frustrated as they were. The Walmart parking lot and the Home Depot parking lots are full. You can cut your grass, but you can't cut your hair. And so I understand their frustration, and we did have some input in that. Mostly it was the agreement of self-governance. And I'll use this segue, Father Murphy, I got lots of complaints about closing city parks, especially the playgrounds and especially the tennis courts. And I had to apologize and explain to my fellow Clevelanders that the Facebook pictures and the iPhone photographs and the text messages were so overwhelming of the incredibly large gatherings of people in these public places that we were forced to police the problem because people were not self-policing the number of people at one time. So I hated to do it, but we had to do it for the safety of the entire city. And we're trying to get all of that reopened as fast as possible. We get it. Kids need to play, and sunshine, as Dr. Johnson can tell you, is good to get the virus down. So we're trying to get these kind of things reopened. But we had to step in and police the situation because people were not self-policing their own actions. Hope that makes sense. I do want to take just a second if there's no more questions. I don't see any hands, but so many Rotarians came to the rescue of so many people. I was just scanning through the gallery this morning, and I already talked about Cheryl Dunson in the ASPCA tent, Salvation Army, and her title is Sergeant Ruthie Forgy, but I call her General because to me she's a 5-star general. She was the first call. You have to be a fellow Rotarian and a brother and a sister when you can call someone at 3:30 in the morning and they actually answer the phone. Ruthie was already geared up to help, and at 3:30 Easter Sunday, actually it was the day after Easter by that time, it was Monday morning at 3:30 a.m., she was serving coffee to our first responders who were still working in the dark because there was no power for many, many city blocks at the corner of 6th and Lowry. And I see Jim and Philomena Paul Davis and other realtor friends who showed up. At one point, we had up to 35 realtors delivering relief items because I didn't know who else to call. We had already filled up all of the other call list of who we can call for help. I've seen doctors and lawyers, and Dr. Johnson knows our first responders who have been just responding so admirably. And so many of you, as I scan this gallery, were such a huge part of our relief system. And I just want to personally say thank you.
Joyce, go ahead. You had a question?
It's not so much a question. First responders, we would love to have been first responders, but we have two things against us, age being the physical thing, but also we're of that age that we need to physically isolate and stay home. But remind everybody that there are other ways you can serve. Drop people notes, make phone calls, do whatever it takes to stay in touch with people out there and keep their spirits up, Kevin. There's so many little things we can do. And I also want to remind you that if you're serving above self, you should be keeping track of your hours for our Rotary Club. And I don't think people are doing that. We should be turning in hours if we're serving, because I think it should count for a Rotary. Would you agree on that or not?
Absolutely. And we can turn our hours into Lisa. She is keeping track of all of that for us.
Okay. And then one other little thing that has nothing to do with all this. You see us go like this every once in a while? That is applause from the deaf world, the hard of hearing world. So rather than unmute to applaud somebody, we can do. All right.
Joyce, I'm applauding you. I thought that was jazz hands, but I'm applauding you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for the mayor? Let me switch over
Can
to.
I've got a comment, but go ahead, Alan.
can I just ask the mayor, like, what are the things that are on the forefront of your mind as we kind of get back into some sort of normalization? Like, how do you see this unfolding for the city?
Thanks. You know, I gotta say, and my dear friend Dr. Johnson and my other dear friends at Tenova and medical facilities have a little bit of a different thought, but I've got to get Cleveland back to work, and I'll explain it to you in a way that possibly people have not thought about, and it was an eye-opening experience to me to begin to do this study, but there's an underlying problem that people don't realize of what's happening because people are out of work, out of money, and out of hope. And part of the problem is that our 911 system is recording double-digit increases in violent calls. Comparing the month of March from 2019 to 2020, we have a 21% increase in 1 month year to date of assaults, a 13% increase in child abuse, 64% increase in narcotic traffic, 92% increase in overdose, 38% increase in shoplifting, 23% increase in vandalism, and a 52% increase in suicides. I have to get people back to work. I have to get people restore their hope, restore their income, and restore, your word, Alan, normalcy. Because this pause in our life and in our economy, I can cut back on spending and we can make the budget work. I can fix the financial side, but I can't fix the emotional side. The emotional damage and the collateral damage that this quarantining and closure has done, even me as mayor, and I got to give First Lady Kim Brooks, who inspired me to really look at these numbers. She began hearing from the boards that she serves on about the child abuse increases and about the domestic assault increases. And Kevin, we've got to look at these numbers because the numbers, the 911, the police reports tell another side of this story that, quite frankly, even I as mayor had not shown the light on. So Alan, as I look forward, I've got to get my city and my county and my town back to work and back to restoring the normalcy. I've got kids at home. I've got parents at home. I've got grandparents at home. And we've got to get some folks back out and back into society as safely as possible. I use the analogy of King Solomon's baby. Which half? The health of my citizens or the health of my city? I've got to get them both at the same time restored back to their health? That's a great question, Alan. Thank you.
Matthew, you had a question?
Just a comment. I had a birthday this week, and there I am getting things together at my cabin and spending time with the family. And is it talking? Yeah. And my wife comes in and says, "You've got a call from Mayor Brooks." And so he took the time to reach out and say happy birthday this week. And I thought that was just a real nice touch of him, a real class act. Mayor, you're a great man, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community.
Thank you, Counselor. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I just want to say I'm really thankful, Mayor, that you're the mayor and I'm not. I'm really thankful that the president is the president of the U.S. and I'm not. And all of these roles. And I know it's so easy for us, and I find myself in the same role sometimes, of being critical and why this and why that. But most of the time it's because we don't understand all the details. We don't understand that there's a bedrock under whatever, or gas lines here, or we don't understand and all those things. And it's so easy to be critical and all those things. But I just, for one, want to say thank you, the President of the U.S. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Governor Lee, for all these times that you're maneuvering for us and taking care of those things, because I know you burn the midnight oil. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Mayor Brooks, yeah, I appreciate your information today. And I thought those stats that you read off are quite remarkable. And I think, to Pat's point, say with the road construction or whatever seems to be bogged down, so to speak, I didn't know all this. And I keep up with news pretty well. And I think it's important. Maybe this is a time to almost over communicate with people about other aspects of this COVID virus. We've really focused on the health, which I get that, we should. But I think, as you've pointed out, there are other aspects to this problem that I don't hear anything about. And I think that, as you know, good public policy includes more than just the science. As you've pointed out, we have to look at what's going on with these statistics for 911 calls, for example. So yeah, I just say go and again, for what it's worth, it seems like to me this might be a good time to over communicate with what's going on.
Thank you. I will, I'll remind my kids when they say I put too much on Facebook, I'll say, Sunrise Rotary says over communicate.
Good morning, Mayor. I thank you for all that you're doing, and for our club and people who really do live service above self. But what we're seeing and what you're explaining is, while Mother Nature is acting up, there's also the human nature side. And I serve as a coordinator of the chaplain unit for the police department. I can tell you that my phone has gone off very frequently about these overdoses. There's been a lot more deaths and problems created from the coronavirus, not of coronavirus. Just the nature of people. And while I appreciate so much that people can restore buildings and vehicles and all of the things that are left in the wake of a storm like these tornadoes, but I, like you, a man of faith, believe that only God can and will and does restore souls. So I want to remind you too that I tell our church congregation all the time, we can do a lot of things, but I can't read someone's mind. So, and I'm not fussing. I'm just saying that there's a church at 4745 Mouse Creek Road, Grace Community, you let me know how we can serve you, this community, anybody in our club, and we are glad to do that. And I know others are. You let us know these stats. Are these stats available somewhere? Are they publicized? Or
They're actually not publicized. I got them yesterday. I worked with Steve Crump's office, the 911 center, and our city police, where you're the chaplain. And we put them together because Mrs. Brooks encouraged me to send a letter to Governor Lee and say, there's so much more to this in our small, sweet town. Please help us. The direct message, Pastor, there was a line in Executive Order 30 that took away from the 89 counties and cities the ability for us to make our own decisions.
right.
It basically said, no order shall be written by a local government, city or county mayor to supersede this executive order. And I'm saying, Governor, would you respectfully reconsider that line? Because we've got to get some people back to work. I've got to get people back to church. I got to get people, I have to restore their hope. That's what they've lost.
Right. And Rick, I know that you are a licensed counselor, Keith Munford, there are others. You know, after sometimes in first responders and in military, there's a debriefing, but sometimes people are dealing with all these emotional sides. There's no debriefing. If somehow we can serve our community and have some kind of debriefing, I'm glad to help coordinate or anything like that. I know the social distancing thing has to be in place, but there are people who are really just don't even know what to do with all of these emotional distresses and crisis. But God bless you. We're praying for you.
Thank you.
Thankful for the great community we live in.
Thank you.
Mayor Brooks, thank you so much for coming and talking with us this morning, and we do deeply appreciate all that you do.
Well, I'm grateful.
Yeah, those stats are alarming. And
Hey, Madam President, is it okay if I take a picture of our Zoom call so I can post it that I was on Zoom this morning?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, I'm going to.
Mary, may I say a word? I approached the mayor last week and I said, hey, can you do this? I just texted him. He says, I said, you can be in your bathrobe at the breakfast table, and he did. So anyway, appreciate responding to us so quickly.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much. So that I can give everybody credit, the only person I'm not seeing is, and it's no face, but it's Tim Siniard's iPhone, Siniards, and I'm
He's from the newspaper.
Okay, all right, great. Well, welcome, Tim. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Lisa. All right, if you guys would join me in the four-way test, and I will unmute if we need to. Here we go. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it
fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill
And better friendships?
Will it be
Beneficial to all concerned?
All right, y'all go out and make it a great day.